A lot of things I will say in this video may upset you. You may disagree with a lot of things I say in this video, but these are my opinions, and I have the right to have them, as you have the right to disagree with me. With that being said, today I will rank every single FNAF game in my opinion. There are two factors I will be taking into consideration: horror and gameplay. I will go through each main iteration from the Cawthon Saga in the Steel Wool duology. I will be ranking each main title, so no spin-off or troll games. Though for one of these games, I'm not gonna rank them because I haven't played it. Though I will have a lengthy talk about it. FNAF is something I am truly passionate about, and I have relatively really strong opinions about each of the respective games. So light your torch, grab your pitchforks, ready that pole, because I will be tied to it and ceremoniously be martyred and burned for my opinions. Because I am going to piss off both old and new FNAF fans. Without further ado, let's commence forth. Security Breach. This is the one game I won't rank. I haven't played this game. I could go on blabbing why, but what's the point? It's just a continuation to a series that should have ended 3 games ago. And even then, you could see the decline in quality. It was only a foreshadowing of the nightmare to come. From the playthroughs and other things that I've seen, there are only a few things about this game that are scary. And that's the fact that it's not scary. Like, in the slightest. One of the most influential horror series with one of the most inspiring success stories led up to this. The characters aren't even remotely scary. The jump scares are stale. Insert white woman jump scare meme here. It's filled to the brim with cute and bright colors and easily marketable advertiser-friendly characters. It's just a reflection of modern indie horror. Many sought out indie horror for its unique, down-to-earth, non-corporate feel. Now it just comes back to haunt us with this non-indie, glitch-filled, so-called horror title. And don't even get me started on the lore. Remember that somber speech Henry made? Remember the tremendous sacrifice he made to save his daughter and the others tormented by William? All for nothing, because Lord forbid you continue the series without William Afton. I am so tired of this sack of purple pixels. The second it seems like we're moving on to new characters, it just comes right back to where we started in a full 360. So why is the question? Why should I pay $40 for this? You know, how many infinitely more promising games I could get? Good grief! Then again, that is my personal idea. If I actually played it, it could be one of the best games I ever played for all I know, but I would be willing to bet my soul to the Grim Reaper himself and bet that I wouldn't enjoy this game in the slightest. Though, at least we can say one thing: it fails as a FNAF game. I could ramble over and over about what a FNAF game really is and what it's supposed to be, but I would only be regurgitating what other larger FNAF content creators have already stated. If you love this game, that's awesome. I feel happy for you even. I love that you are happy with where the series is going and that you are satisfied. But in my personal opinion, this is the biggest punch in the gut that the series could ever give. Anyway, let's continue before I start bursting more blood vessels, shall we? Sister Location at the time was incredibly ambitious and generally well received, opting for a more conventional horror experience, other than the other Fnaf titles. I have many issues with this game. When you watch the game being played, you don't see the issues. And given that most people don't play these games, I can see how this game creeps into people's top threes. This game has frustrating mechanics. And dead ones too. I'm sorry, that was a terrible joke. The minigames being either mind-numbingly boring or unplayably impossible. Though, there are nuggets of gold in this pile of dirt. The Entered Night is really fun and pretty tense. The Custom Night is also pretty good. And the game overall is really scary. The game is better to be called an experience, like a horror movie. The jump scares are my favorite in this series. The faceplate's getting me every single time. I don't have much else to say. YouTuber named made a 1-hour video that explains my exact issues, so I'd rather you go check it out than me have to state the same exact points to just say Fnaf 5 mid. Oh great, the children are here to behead me. Gotta go. Help wanted, help wanted. Look, this game single-handedly is the reason why I started becoming passionate for the games and actually played them. Way back on February 6th, 2021, I got an Oculus and decided Fnaf VR would be pretty cool, so I played it. I hold the game in very high regard and have a respect for it. Though for some arbitrary reason, I find it to be the second least scary game out of the bunch. I feel like a lack of control is what makes the game so horrifying. When I play Fnaf VR, I feel calm, collected, and in control. Aside from a few moments, its horror doesn't shine that well, and I feel like it could be a lot more intense from what I have seen from other VR horror titles. This definitely makes it look a lot more like a Weenie Hut Juniors, though. I will give it that it's pretty fun. Though each VR remake is like an easily degraded version. In Fnaf 1, you remove the camera taking up battery, which makes the power a lot more of a joke. You also have no more need to flip up the cameras as it's just right in front of you. In Fnaf 2, you don't have to flip up the cameras, and also the fact that you have two hands, one to man the music box and lights, and the other to hold the mask. Need I go on? Though, I will give them credit where credit is due. Even though Glitch Trap is horrendous in a lore sense, he's genuinely horrifying, and the final ending is nothing short of bone-chilling. The other games are pretty good. I definitely think a few of them are questionable in comparison to other minigames they could have added. I feel like also, vent repair was very underutilized and should have been more expanded upon in the grander scheme of things. Because that part was genuinely horrifying because it took away that feeling of control. Well, at least the mangle bit did. The entered one is kind of a joke. Ultimate Custom Night. Hey, this isn't too hot of a take for once. Ultimate Custom Night is pretty alright. It's definitely the most replayable out of the bunch, and genuinely fun to mess around with. Each challenge is addicting in its own right. And the high score number is so tempting to beat. The mechanics are pretty fun, and do a good job at feeling fair, even though it's next to impossible to beat. Though, it isn't scary in the slightest. The only one who's actually scary is Helpy. Don't even ask. The jump scares are pretty stale, and usually just shaking pictures. It's nothing too significant to the story, it just ties up loose ends, and in my mind, where the series should have ended, or I guess more of an epilogue for falling action to the climax that was FNAF 6, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Ultimate Custom Night is a fun little arcade game. FNAF 6 is an odd game. All of the previous titles, you play as a night guard, simple night guard, at each establishment and nothing much else. I mean, besides FNAF 4 where you're a kid in his room, but you get my point. This game has you as a manager, ensuring that your pizzeria is the best there is to offer. Activities include testing your attractions, getting sponsors, upgrading your equipment and restaurant, buying the most up-to-date and safest equipment, maintenance, fulfilling a plan to lure animatronics that house the souls of dead children in a serial killer so that you can inevitably burn it down, taking them all down with you. You know, the usual pizzeria manager stuff. Anyway, the game has a fun style that keeps its humor in the casual and sillier parts of the game, rather than the actual horror sections. The introduction is very telling of exactly what you're in for. An 8-bit minigame that shifts into a horror section that is then calmed down by a hilarious parody of a corporate slideshow. Tycoon phases have very funny gags like the pickle jar that adds 1 happiness, or Lefty with a liability risk of 9 and is only $5. But when you run out of things to do, you move on to the office segment, which this is probably my least favorite part of the game. Having to balance the tasks with the loud fan and the fact that you can't really tell if they're right next to you or not makes things a little more frustrating than fun. I feel like if you could actually see them in the vents, it would be way better. But then we move on to the salvage phase, which is the best part of the horror segment, in my opinion. It never feels unfair and does the resource management part a lot better than the former. This segment is genuinely tense when you're face to face with the animatronics and hearing the disturbing audio prompts. In total, it's a pretty good game despite its shortcomings and still manages to be a pretty solid iteration of the franchise. But nothing quite tops the tremendous ending. The music feeling like a climactic and cinematic epic, where you see the final conclusion to the main antagonist, a few mysteries and other loose ends, with such a badass speech delivered by the creator of these nightmares, who never intended this twisted legacy to happen. You see your tormentors and foes finally put to rest, or in one case, the exact opposite. Finally seeing such a horrible man meet such a violent and gruesome ending is incredibly satisfying for both you and the characters. Seeing a man who committed one of the worst crimes against humanity, some of the most vile, inhuman acts, finally getting the hell he truly deserves, where he'll rot for all eternity and atone for his sins forever. That is what I call justice. You see why it should have ended here?
We had everything we needed, it all ran like clockwork. You could have shut your mouth, it was perfect, but no, you just had to blow it up. You, and your pride and your ego. You just had to be the man. If you'd done your job, known your place, we'd all be fine right now.
FNAF 2 is often regarded as one of, if not the best FNAF game. I don't understand this. By all means, it's good, but it's overrated. I feel like you never use the mechanics properly. How many people actually check the cameras? The only reason you need cameras is because of the music box. What about the power that was in the first game that it was famous for? It just switched to flashlight battery. But to be honest, it's a joke! The toys aren't even that scary either. Other than that, it's pretty good. The withers are really horrifying additions. The mangle is also pretty cool, but feels like they're pretty easy to avoid and just become mask hazard number 8. And that's another thing. When you think about it, there are only 3 threats in the game. The puppet, Foxy, and the rest of the bunch. The other animatronics are just the same thing with a different process. Nonetheless, the game is pretty solid and pretty fun. It really just opts for reaction other than strategy, which I don't have too much of a problem with. I just wish the horror was more prevalent and its mechanics balanced out. If I haven't made you angry already, I probably just spiked your testosterone levels and probably gonna find a pipe bomb in my mailbox next week. Anyway, FNAF 3 is amazing, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. Okay. Yes, of course, the jump scares are pretty bad. But besides that, I find the ambience and setting to be genuinely chilling. The fact that you can barely even find Springtrap works really well in the game's horror, making you feel more desperate in finding him before he can find you. It genuinely feels like a chess game against a truly worthy adversary, with every move making it all the more tense. I like that this game doesn't care too much about reaction, except for with the phantoms. Other than that, it's mainly strategy. The game is incredibly immersive and feels like you're desperately trying everything in your power to keep this silent, menacing killer at bay. The ending, for the first time, feels like progression in the story, where you actually once free some souls, and even though you didn't win against your foe, this time, you will defeat him one day, and finally put an end to the madness. Where it all began. There is a reason Five Nights at Freddy's is regarded as the best Five Nights at Freddy's game. I won't go over the process and success story, as this is just a review, but it's rather remarkable. The ambience and horror is outstanding in my opinion, and the only game that does the can be a kid's attraction, but also horrifying thing really well. Each render on the camera has perfect lighting to make these pretty alright designs look like the most horrifying thing in the world. The mechanics work well with you using all of them. The camera to keep tabs on Foxy and keep Freddy at bay. The doors to keep the animatronics from entering your office. The game just has a haunting energy that I adore. This game feels like the most passion and style. Truly, nothing was like it at the time. There isn't much else to say besides the fact that this is a really good game, just barely loses against, in my opinion, the best Five Nights at Freddy's game. Imagine, if you will, being a child in your room. It's a normal night. You're just trying to rest your eyes and sleep, but you hear noises moving. You check outside your room and meet with a 7-foot rabbit-like abomination with razor-sharp claws and teeth. You slam the door and wait for him to leave. You see small teddy bears that are ugly and impish creatures that look rather similar to the beast outside your room, crawling all over your bed. All around you are unnatural evils that reared their hideous faces into your home. You're trapped. All you can do is your best to hide, to defend yourself, to survive. FNAF 4 is an incredibly immersive experience that feels like no other in the series. There hasn't been a FNAF game like it. The game first warns you that you need to listen closely to your surroundings. The ambience has so many decoys that throw you off the track and make you think that that was the aforementioned breathing. They all work to make you extremely paranoid of your surroundings and every little noise you hear that you think is breathing. Until you actually hear it, you know it. Though one little slip-up will get you met with one of the most terrifying jump scares the series has to offer. You probably, beforehand, increased the audio so you could hear it, which makes the jump scares all the more shocking. Everything you have to balance, the Freddles, the two creatures outside your room, and even having to keep Foxy from leaping out of your closet and slaughtering you, it all brings you back to that original feeling you had as a young child. Being afraid of what's under the bed, hiding in the closet, concealing yourself in the darkness of your home, it brings you to that initial fight or flight as a kid. When you didn't have things like logic or reasoning to hold back your imagination. It for a moment brings you back to that horrible fear you once had. This by no means is a masterpiece of a game. You can claw it to death, and I would understand you. It has its faults. The lore is a mess and left with more loose ends than what was originally intended to fulfill. It added questions that fans even to this day can't figure it out. Horror is subjective, and to me, this is a genuinely chilling game that brings back an old feeling of fear of the unknown. Isn't that what a horror game is supposed to do? Five Nights at Freddy's is a sad direction nowadays, and I'm far from the first person who thinks that it's past its prime. And in a state of decline, it shows no signs of stopping. It's like what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I suppose down that road, we could see signs of the aforementioned hell, but by the time we figured it out, it was too late. But with the Fanverse initiative, we may still have hope. But none of this matters, because we can all agree that Fnaf Special Delivery is hot garbage. Oh my god! Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the other side of the sewer. See ya!